students. So today I want us to read this article, this I believe by Isabel Allende. It's on page 297, page 297 of your textbook. And just before we start, I think it's good to read this little note that it says that Isabel Allende was a journalist in Chile but left the country in 1975 after her uncle, the president, was killed. Since then, she has written many short stories, articles, and novels. So, Miss Allende is an author. And if we look through, before we read, it's always nice to look through and look at the text features. So, this text, this article has no heads, but I do see some photos. And so here it says this is Paula, who was living in Madrid. So maybe we'll find out. And so this looks like this was Allende's daughter, and she died. She died when she was young. And then here's a photo of Isabel Allende, and she's signing some books. And let's see if we see anything else. Nope, that's it. We also have this quote sort of pulled out from the text. I don't cling to anything anymore. Cling, it says, means to hold on tightly. So those are all the text features that we have. So I want to use a similar strategy to read this text that we used when we read enabling or disabling, but there are no heads to turn into questions. So we're going to use the title. We're just going to use the title and we're going to turn it into a question to help us focus our reading. So the title of this one is This I Believe. So if I'm thinking of my question, I've already started my notes. My question could be, what does Allende believe? Right? So while I read this article, I'm going to just look for details that tell me what does she believe. So let's get started. So it starts right here. I have lived my life with passion and in a hurry, trying to accomplish too many things. I never had time to think about my beliefs until my 28-year-old daughter, Paula, fell ill. She was in a coma for a year, and I took care of her at home until she died in my arms in December of 1992. During that year of agony and the following year of grieving, everything stopped for me. There was nothing to do, just cry and remember. However, in that experience, I discovered there is consistency in my beliefs, my writing, and the way I lead my life. I have not changed. I am still the same girl I was 50 years ago, and the same young woman I was in the 1970s. I still lust for life. I am still ferociously independent. I still crave justice, and I fall madly in love easily. So here, I don't necessarily feel like there's any that I know what she believes yet, right? I have some information about her, but I don't have any information about what she believes, so I'm going to keep reading. Paralyzed and silent in her bed, my daughter Paula taught me a lesson that is now my mantra. You only have what you give. It's by spending yourself that you become rich. So this to me feels like this is one of her beliefs, right? You only have what you give. It's by spending yourself that you become rich. So I'm going to write that here. And that's on page 298, and I put my period at the end. So she believes that when you, and I'm actually going to write what I think that means. So Allende believes that um, giving is very important and that you become rich. I don't think she means like with money. I think she means more with your spirit, right? Alma, your spirit or your heart, right? That your heart and spirit become rich when you um, give yourself, like give your time and energy to other people. Okay, so I'm going to look for some more details. I'm going to see what other details I can find that tell me a little bit about what Allende believes. So let's just read a little bit more. Paula led a life of service. She worked as a volunteer, helping women and children 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. She never had any money, but she needed very little. When she died, she had nothing and she needed nothing. During her illness, I had to let go of everything: her laughter, her voice, her grace, her beauty, her company, and finally her spirit. When she died, I thought I had lost everything. But then I realized I still had the love I had given her. I don't even know if she was able to receive that love. She could not respond in any way. Her eyes were somber pools. Somber, let's look at the bottom here. What does it say? Somber, dark, and sad. Dark and sad. Her eyes were somber pools that reflected no light. But I was full of love, and that love keeps growing and multiplying and giving fruit. The pain of losing my child meant I had to throw overboard all excess baggage and keep only what is essential. Because of Paula, I don't cling to anything anymore. Now I like to give much more than to receive. So I'm going to add that because that feels like it's another belief. Let me make sure I'm writing it correctly. I like to give much more than to receive. That's on page 299. Okay, so now what you can do is you can say, well, what does that mean? So Allende believes, and I want you to write what that means. And then what I want you to do is I want you just to finish reading the text, and I want you to find one more example of what she believes, and I want you to say, what does that tell us? Okay, so I want you to put the quote right here. So you'll put your quote right here, just like I did, and then you'll put your what you think she believes right after that. Okay, guys, so you have this little bit left, and then there's one little bit here left to read. And I want to remind you that, so when we were reading this text, one thing we're doing to help us understand it is we looked at the title, right? We made a question with the title, What Does Allende Believe? And now as we're reading, we are looking for examples of what she believes in the text, and then we're saying what we think she means, right? So we have one here that I did. We have another here, I've written it, and you just need to write what do you think that she believes, and then you are going to find one more. If you need any help, please let me know.